Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is the December 5th meeting for the Cannabis Ordinance Task Force. And Ruby, can you check online? If you guys can hear me online, would you just raise your hand? Just checking to see if, yep. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Before we do roll call, I just wanted to notify the task force and the public of a letter that we received from the Fire Chiefs Association that I will read into the record now. It is regarding resignation from the task force. Dear Lake County Cannabis Task Force, on behalf of the Lake County Fire Chiefs Association, this letter serves as a request to resign our seat on the Lake County Task Force. It has been a pleasure to work with the task force and appreciate the opportunity to serve with the group. We have developed friendships and mutual respect through our time with you. Due to overwhelming schedules that frequently conflict with the task force, which will only increase our absence in person and teleconferencing, that the Lake County Fire Chiefs Association feels it can no longer provide the support needed to the task force as you move forward. We are still available to support the task force as needed in the technical expertise related to fire prevention, protections, and current codes and regulations. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and it's signed Willie Cepeda, President of the Lakeport Fire Chiefs Association. So this letter of resignation will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors. I did ask Willie about the board appointing somebody who maybe isn't an active fire personnel, and they advised against it, but that decision is actually up to the board. However, when we do have a draft ordinance, when it goes out for review, the fire districts will also be included in that review at that time. And so their input will still be solicited. Okay, did anybody have any questions about that letter? There's no action to take, so. No, any questions online? And if you're new joining our meetings, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand so that we'll know to call on you. Nope, okay. We're gonna move on to roll call, please, Ruby.
Yes, Catherine Vanderwall is not present. Nara Delvaca.
Present.
Rebecca Harper.
Present.
Jennifer Smith.
Here.
William Wise.
Here.
Richmond Kelly.
Present.
And Robert Geary is not present.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes for the November 4th task force meeting. Richmond, did you say that we may not be able to take this up?
I didn't want to speak for Rebecca.
We
can do all of them.
Richmond, ooh, we have 5.
We can do all of them.
We can do all of them?
So we don't need to have.
Excellent.
No, you just have to have a majority.
Oh, okay, I thought you had that.
And it has to be the same people that were here, but not all the same.
Looks like we've got 5.
Then yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
November 4th minutes. Are there any questions from the task force? If not, we will open it to public input. Any members of the public have comments on the November 4th draft minutes? Andrew, feel free to speak up because I won't always see you.
Thank you, yeah, sorry.
So,
Yeah.
Angela.
All right. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you, Maria. Just a correction, on the minutes, it has it as packet page 5, it's meeting minutes page 3. Under item number 4 at the very bottom where it says staff suggested, it says Golden Eagle Ranch. Just wonder if you can change that. It says updating the APN pages for all commercial activity on Golden Eagle Ranch.
Oh, we mean double eagle.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Eagle is a lovely name, but Ruby will correct that. Yeah, that sounds substantive. Super, but that was, it's sort of kind of in the middle, before D, where it says staff suggested, and then the third bullet point, should read double eagle. Thank you, Angela. Any other
Thank
hands for November 4th draft minutes? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the task force. Wait, I still see your
Sarah.
hand up.
Yeah, Sarah
Oh,
just
go ahead,
raised her hand.
Sarah.
Hi there, this is Sarah Bodner, consultant, and I had raised a question about the point from which setbacks are measured. For that 1,000 foot, to clarify from the project site. I'd raised a question about that in the last meeting that said it would be clarified in this meeting. Just wanted to make sure that was noted in the minutes.
Well, this isn't the last meeting minutes. This is November 4th. Hold on to that one, Sarah.
It was discussed at that meeting, and then at the following meeting, I brought up that we needed to clarify where that setback was noted. That had been decided at the November 4th meeting. The 1,000 foot setback was decided on November 4th, but it's not clear in the minutes where the 1,000 feet is measured from.
Page 4 of the minutes.
Page 4 in the minutes. Wait, page 4 of the packet?
Sorry, the packet.
Thanks. Let's see.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that that is 1,000 foot from the project site, not the property line of where the project is located.
So where it says in J that it's horizontally from the areas or uses for the cannabis cultivation site, is that not what you were thinking? Because that did not need any change. I don't think there was any action to take change. Was there, task force? Okay. So I think
Okay,
you got
yeah,
it.
I had wanted to clarify that applied to all of the items.
Thank you. That would have been public input. Okay, so but specified in this section means all of the items in the section, so I think we're good. All right, any other public input? We'll bring it back to the task force for discussion and action.
I move to accept and file the November 4th minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Are there any task force members opposed? All right, 5-0. Moving on to the November 15th minutes. Comments, questions from the task force? Seeing none, we'll open it up to the public for questions, comments on the November 15th draft minutes. Hands raised in the room. Anybody on Zoom? Judy?
Not currently.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the task force.
I was curious, Maria, wasn't Paul Bruce present via Zoom at this meeting?
There's like one of the last two.
Yeah, but in all of them, it says he was not present, so. I know that he was on via Zoom for one of these, so I just want to make sure that whichever meeting that was, it's clarified in the minutes that he was present via Zoom.
Okay.
And the only reason he didn't mark him present was because he wasn't agendized, so he wasn't voting. I can
Let's
definitely-
add a note on that one, just to say that he was present via Zoom.
Absolutely.
So, but task force members present via Zoom aren't able to vote. Yes. All right, cool. Anything else on the November 15th draft minutes? Oh, Andrew? Well, we actually finished it, but go ahead, if you had something.
Under the formal withdrawal of approval projects on a voluntary basis.
Wait, page 10?
Yes.
Page 10 is the one with
Of the packet.
wait, that's, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, go ahead. Okay.
The one of these also the task force was an adventure around cessation of tax obligations and other issues.
What section is that? Oh, the task force requested staff to add the following to the draft statement? Or that they requested additional information?
I believe that was requested by the task force member that walked. Sort of the flip side of the second bullet point there.
Are releasing of permittee from future fees and taxes.
Wanted them to be current on fees, but then also not incur new fees once
Okay.
it was, withdrawn.
31,
Yeah, page 31.
packet page 31.
Mhm.
Okay.
Package page 31, number 2, formal withdrawal of an approved project on a voluntary basis. And there's A through D.
Okay. But the minutes would still need to be amended to reflect Nara's request.
So, okay, so if I understand correctly, then the request. I actually don't understand. So we're saying, because we can't really decree that they won't be held responsible for anything else, right? Right?
I think the request was to clarify what they're saying. Responsible for site inspections due or the other fees associated with that, if they're at cost. Current. So they will talk about this. They don't want this to come back to the
And I can speak on that for projects that have been expired. I notify the tax collector's office of the date of expiration, and they're no longer issued cultivation taxes from that point forward. As soon as they're expired. So if they were to be withdrawn, it would go through that same process for a project closeout. It would notify the tax collector's office.
Do we need those steps clarified here?
Well,
It's more internal procedure.
wasn't this new? Because I'm not sure that staff has the authority to close the project since we're not the deciding body.
For the expiration.
I think that's a separate matter. All that really needs to be discussed here is that that's what Nara requested, and therefore it should be noted in the minutes, whether that's what can
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
occur or not.
Let's do that. Okay, you're right. Do that too. Okay. Task force requested. So. Okay, so if the task force was requesting information, though, you weren't requesting a modification of the statement anyway, right?
Yeah, I think we were requesting.
I think it was a request to look at the draft.
Then we'll make note of that request.
Right, those other four bullet points still need to be fleshed out and not back in the draft language.
Okay, so, and that was done by consensus of the task force, right?
Information regarding tax.
So I think the minutes is fine, and then we go through the subject matter later.
Okay, so the task force requested info regarding future
Tax and fee obligations or
tax and fee obligations. After withdrawal, is that
yeah, right, or like a release. Maybe like a sub thing under the increase, correct? That when those fees stop or something.
okay? So the task force requested information regarding future tax and fee obligations after withdrawal. Yeah, good catch. Thank you. All All right, Ruby, can you add that statement to the minutes? So then this one is, and that would be amended in a substantive manner, so we'll have to just say as amended when we make a motion. All right. Is there any further public input since we kind of put us back to it? On those minutes, no, then we'll bring it back to the task force for discussion and action. Ruby, can you confirm there's no hand raised?
Yeah.
Double check.
It does, it actually pops up on the
Oh,
screen.
it does not. November 15th draft minutes, ready for discussion and or action.
Move to accept and file November 15 as amended.
We have a motion?
Jennifer Smith, I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed?
I will abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Four. Wait, if you weren't here, can we vote on it?
Yeah,
Yes, we still have the majority.
We still have all five. Okay.
no, we have 4 of the 5, which is still.
Okay. Let's see. Next, we have November 18th, task force minutes. Any questions from the? Seeing none, open it up to questions in the room. None, hands raised in Zoom, Ruby?
No.
No hands in Zoom, bringing it back to task force. This is ready for action anytime the task force.
Page 13 of the package.
Okay, so let's go back, this is regarding that. All right. Take it back for public inputs. Go ahead, Andrew.
At the bottom of page 13, bullet C, site remediation requirements. There was some discussion on the task force with those, design for clarity.
Was there a consensus of action on the task force regarding what site remediation means?
We requested additional language for it in the previous agenda meeting, and then this is being inserted here, so I still don't see on page 31 that detail has been added, but I also believe that that is part of today's discussion.
Great.
I could be wrong. If that is part of today's discussion, then I think we can approve these minutes. If it's not, then I think we are still waiting for site remediation language.
It looks like the agenda was done with that. So we're not talking about incomplete and abandoned obligations and voluntary withdrawal. So let's table these minutes then.
Yeah.
So wait,
No, number 2 is on the agenda for tonight. And that's what you're speaking of, the letter D, or excuse me, the,
why would we table the minutes and not amend them if we're not talking about it today? Like, can't we still approve what action was taken on the 18th? We just corrected or made corrections in the last minutes to note something that was absent.
Okay, so then we're gonna, as long as it's contingent that this is still an outstanding request.
I think that that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that and then we'll bring that back for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as Ruby had stated, it is agendized here because that's part of the formal withdrawal of an approved project on a voluntary basis.
Okay, yeah.
It's not the incomplete and abandoned applications and voluntary withdrawal, which is the one that we had completed.
So we
Number
can
two.
approve this because
Oh,
we already
you're
talked
right.
about it.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Okay, so it is part of number 2. Okey-doke. Good.
I moved to, accept and file the minutes from November 18th.
Did you want to add that note in C?
I don't think we need to because it's part of
We'll
today.
talk about
It still hasn't been discussed.
It would,
Right.
as long as it goes back.
All right, so that was Jennifer and Richmond.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Oh. Angela, was there something else we missed? Because
Nothing, nothing with the minutes, but the gentleman that was speaking for public comment, we can't hear him on Zoom. I just wanted to point that out.
all right,
Thank
then
you.
talk that way.
I'll speak up.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Angela. All right. Thanks, everybody. Next item, discussion and consideration on 73.4 restrictions and prohibited activities. We left off last week talking about Lake County farmland. The task force had requested maps that staff has done in the meantime. That are part of this agenda on page 36 of the agenda packet. This is showing our existing and, or approved and our pending cannabis projects with the overlay of the farmland, the state farmland map. We also have them on larger version, 11 by whatever that is, 17, and we can share them on screen in a moment. And I think when we get that, make sure I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, that we are talking about the changes that we made was to add hoop houses.
That didn't pass.
That did not.
That did not pass, okay. We changed prevents to limits. That's A. So this is for further discussion of the subsections under farmland. There you just shared screen and it has the map available up on the screen. Do you have any questions?
So these are all projects, these aren't just impacted projects.
Wait, can we go back to that statement about hoop houses?
Yeah, on my,
Because 3 voted yes, Rebecca voted no, and 2 abstentions. So it was 3-1. With
Right,
two,
so-
so with 2 abstentions, it doesn't pass. Okay.
correct, yeah. So if we. We check this one, see? Is that right? We voted on it. No, they need to change this, okay.
Is there a particular area of the map that you guys want to see zoomed in? So you can see the FMMP layers?
So on the printed out versions that are in our packets, it has all of the layers showing. Is there any way to remove some of those layers, like the grazing land, urban and built up land, other land, the land that's not going to be incorporated as part of the new FPZ boundaries? Because I think the purpose of requesting the map was to see how many approved projects would be affected.
I don't think that there are sublayers, it's just the farmland that was brought in.
There's no list of this information where we could see the number and size of projects that are actually in the impact zone. What? What do you mean? A list of some kind showing the
We did not compile the list.
impacted projects.
It would be anything that's within the top 4 colors. So avoiding grazing land.
So anything that's like there's various shades of green.
The 3
Yeah.
shades of green and then the eggshell color.
It's kind of easier to look at if you look at the individual area maps in the packet. I don't know if that helps.
So I can zoom in also, it just depends on which areas you guys want to see. You want to start at North Lake, go around to East Lake, South Lake, and then to West Shore, or whatever the task force desires.
It looks like to me, a substantial amount of the approved projects are in what's categorized as grazing land or other land.
And Mary, for the folks at home, what tells the difference between the colors again?
The various shades of green are
No, I'm sorry, the project colors.
the project colors. Okay, so so the yellow are pending projects, the green are approved projects. It varies.
I guess we should go, area by area. Maps are over, starting at Pillsbury. I'm just going order of the packet.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess Pillsbury would be more plus.
So none of these projects are affected by the new boundary change. In the Pillsbury area.
No.
In, this grazing land, or is that? That other one?
This brown is grazing,
So that's not,
and this is all other.
what's this?
That is grazing. Oh, no, yeah, that's grazing.
That's grazing, so it is.
So all four of those are in grazing and not affected.
Yeah, on the Pillsbury.
So it looks like green.
So, but on the next slide, there's a
Yeah.
lot of lighter brown and the grazing land brown. So is that lighter brown actually the eggshell color?
Yes.
Looks like the lighter brown is the farmland of local importance.
This is the local importance. Just different thing.
Oh, wait, we're looking at a different map. Hold on.
Sorry, not
We're
really.
looking-
We're upper weight slash special
And also any project that's immediately adjacent to a parcel would also be impacted.
Okay, good, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think that is local importance, even though it really doesn't look like the eggshell. But there are darker ones bordering it that are grazing, and then the other goes into the hills.
One, two, three, four, five, six. Six projects in that screen. And
Yeah, there's like 8 of them total.
then you scroll down, there's the last one. Lake County project.
Could be. So, oh, yeah.
It's about 50% of the projects in the village in this area. They're impacted.
Approved or pending, or both?
Both. It's hard to set parcel lines on here too, where a project that may not be in the existing zone, maybe abutting a property that is in the zone, in which case the setbacks and other things can impact the project that's not necessarily in one of those places.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for discussion for the task force is that this map would not just be exactly like this map, it would be with 1,000-foot buffer according to, B. Okay, so if the task force has had enough time to review the maps. Yep, did you have any questions? Because at the previous meeting, we did decide, or the task force voted to approve inclusion of the first 4 types of classes: prime farmland, statewide importance, unique farmland, and local importance. So subsections.
Would the task force like to see other areas of the map?
Hard to tell exactly what that impact zone is gonna be without that 1,000-foot buffer around it, so we're not getting super accurate numbers. I do wonder if there's any member of the public that is part of one of these projects and they want to speak.
Question. My project,
Oh, could you state your name for the record, please?
Travis Nito. So my project has half of the farmland is on my parcel. So would my whole project, all my investment and everything for my project, that I wouldn't be able to cultivate then with this new proposal? So
You have an already approved
I haven't
project?
approved, yeah,
Oh, okay.
we were one of the first farms approved, so.
So when's your renewal?
So currently you would count as legal non-conforming. So it would apply to your parcel, but your entitlement would stay active.
Until my renewals in 4 years.
Right.
So then what happens at renewal time?
I don't know.
I'm in the same boat.
I'm pretty sure it would continue as a legal non-conforming use. I don't think it would go back to the beginning. Because you had already been approved before the zoning changed.
Don't
And
you feel that's,
so one of the issues is that we do not normally have expirations of use permits. It's something that definitely applies to cannabis, but also applies to a few others, not a lot. Typically, according to the code, the use permit remains active as long as there's a use, as long as that use remains active. And so the renewal, I think we'd have to take that into effect, but I don't have an easy part of the code to rely on because we don't usually do renewals. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a more exact answer because I haven't done it before, but the task force has added language already that existing ones should be able to continue to. That was in an earlier spot. So we're gonna have to figure that part out,
That was with 1,000%.
but I do appreciate your question. Yeah.
I think my biggest concern with this whole exercise is that we have all these pending projects that we know about that have, their application's been accepted and deemed complete. And now we're changing the rules on them for what has been a huge investment to that point. Because there are people that bought properties under the auspices that they were an available project to cultivate on. And the available parcel to cultivate on. And now we're changing, and just because that they're still in line and still being processed for one reason or another, that seems a little unfair and more like a takings than anything. It feels like these rules, at the time that your application is deemed complete and the application fee is taken, then those are the rules that should apply to your project.
Also, let me just remind the task force that these are recommendations that go to the board for their consideration. So there will be plenty of options or opportunities for public input further on during the process as well. All right, so it sounds like we kind of opened it up for public input. Let's, is there anybody else in the room? Let's go to Andrew and then we'll go to Tom, and then we'll go into Zoom.
Andrew Dobbs Kramer, hopefully folks can hear me. I want to, first of all, thank staff for these maps. This is incredibly helpful in this space and the issue at hand here. I wish these had been present before motions were passed, expanding these areas. It seems like this would have been really good for inclusion in the previous packet when this came up initially. That said, this is very helpful. It still raises more questions. First for me is how many farms, both approved and proposed. What's our total count of impacted farms, including the 1,000-foot buffer? This is helpful in getting towards that answer, but I don't think this provides ultimately that answer. In my own research, I've found at least 26 farms that are approved that are going to be impacted by this 1,000-foot buffer and the expanded farmland protection zone. I think that's a lot of impact, frankly, without not enough discussion of what that means and then what happens at renewal. I think this is not a question we can punt on. I think this is an existential question for these operators. Are they going to be able to renew, or are they going to be, losing all of their investment? In which case, we should let folks know now before they invest.
It would be within the recommendations, or it could be a possible recommendation that the task force specify that this not exclude or cause a cessation of a permit at permit renewal time. That would be kind of the recommendation, that if that be the will of the task force. Other hands in the, oh, Tom, go ahead.
This is just a clarification question. Again, trying to get alignment between the farmland and local importance recently on the map. I'd like to ask CDD to maybe zoom in on one that they know is farmland and local importance, so I can get the color coding correct.
This project here.
Okay, so that's the color that is farmland and local importance, and then grazing would be something like the gray area, just
Or over here.
Yes.
Yeah, grazing areas that dark brown. So is that kind of grayish beige is local.
And that other land is the gray.
Yes. And why they decided to make the colors so similar, I don't know, but it really wasn't helpful. Yeah. Okay, let's go, go ahead, Bill.
You did learn about the protocol, are you taking comments on all of this, like the?
Not yet, actually, it was, questions about the maps. So far, we're still talking about the maps. But hold on, if you got a question on that one, yeah, make sure we'll get back to you. Okay, questions on the maps and overlays from Zoom room. Who's got their hand up?
I'm trying to get, hold on.
Are those all?
Sorry, it's weird. It's not letting me scroll.
Yeah, just a second, we're figuring that out. We got an issue with because you have MA in the search window, maybe it's pulling that up.
Oh, it's doing a
See that
search.
search window? Nope, nope,
Oh,
nope, get
on
back.
the participants.
Yeah, you got MA written under, yeah, take that out.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so Angela.
Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. If you can just clarify for me, I'm a little confused as to the reason that we're going over the maps. Is it the task? Is it a task that the task force should be taking up for individual projects for consideration? Because if we've already voted, if it's already been voted and decided on the which farmland is going to be included, I'm a little confused as to the reason why we're zooming in on these maps on individual projects. Shouldn't we be discussing the subtopics for farmland protection zone?
Thanks,
right
Angela.
now?
So the task force requested these maps. So we're furnishing the maps.
Right, I understand that, but I don't
We're not
understand
voting
why.
on, we're not voting on the inclusion anymore, but thank you. Okay, next one. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi there, Sarah Bodner, consultant. I'm actually kind of shocked to see the maps. I suspected a lot of projects were going to be impacted by this, but it's lit up like Christmas lights. And I think, with policy, there's whatever the specific goal is, and then there's the consequences of it. And I'm still personally not super clear on what the goals are for expanding this farmland protection zone in practice. The vote happened without a lot of discussion or explanation from the task force members. So I just like to publicly say I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear what the reasons are, because I think in practice this becomes highly problematic. And what we see, what we have seen in counties across California and what studies are being done on now is that bans do not curb illicit market activity. They actually enhance it. And in practice, what we're looking at would be a larger ban on a larger footprint of area where we currently have compliant tax-paying operators. So I think there's two questions that come up for me for the task force, which is what do we see the wisdom in expanding this area? And if the task force wants to stay with this expanded footprint, are there accommodations that could be made for the existing compliant operators? Thank you.
Thanks.
And it's going to be Betsy Kahn.
Go ahead, Betsy.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy Kahn. I just want to say that these color choices really make it hard to distinguish, and I'm just stunned at how difficult it is from the perspective of somebody who's watching this on Zoom. Now I can go to the map itself on the GIS website and zoom in on this stuff, but I'm sorry, I just think this is really poorly done.
I agree. I don't know what the state was thinking. Yeah, thanks, Betsy.
Sorry.
Who's next?
And then Holly Harris.
Go ahead, Holly.
Oh, hi there, Holly Harris. Basically, I have to agree with Betsy. If you're looking on Zoom, it's very difficult. And I think the difficulty is because for some reason, the entire county is outlined in gray. If it was not outlined in gray, that wouldn't be quite as difficult. I also wanted to point out that of all of these yellows that maybe are pending, I believe that's the color. I want to point out that 45 of those are incomplete applications, many of which have been on for years and years, et cetera. So we don't know, when, if they're coming through. After that, too, I also want to point out that none of the current ordinance FPZ zones are outlined on there. So it was hard for me to tell when people were saying, oh, look, there's 15 of these that are going to be affected, if those are already in the current ordinance FPZ zone. That would be helpful to, exclude that. Possibly you can ask county council to give some comments on, current permits and et cetera. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Who's next?
And then Richard.
Go ahead, Richard.
Richard Durham. I hate to sound like a broken record here, but so first and foremost, cannabis doesn't present certain conflicts with traditional farming. And, I've attended the ordinance meetings. God, I can't even tell you how far back, over 10 years. And in the beginning, a lot of parts of the ordinance were actually prohibitive, and they were put into block cannabis. There were obstructionist rules. Slowly but surely, we weeded them all out. This one, 3101, is blatant obstructionist. For example, what is it we're trying to protect? When in reality, the value of crops grown on these zones are minimal of value and only brought up to obstruct and prohibit cannabis cultivation in and around these protected zones. For example, prime farmland, which is the best combination of physical features, available sustained long-term agricultural production. The land has soil, growing season, and moisture supply needed for sustained high yields. Why isn't cannabis included in there? It's a valuable crop. Other protected lands, which is ridiculous if you see why they're protected. So grazing, equivalent to at least one animal per acre defined by the United States Department of Agriculture. I mean, one animal per acre. We're trying to protect that. The land planted with fruit, nuts, bearing trees, vines, bushes, with annual basis projection of unprocessed agricultural project production of not less than $200 per acre. What are we protecting here? What's going on? Is this just another ruse? These are not critical to the agricultural future of Lake County, as many of these crops, once grown on these lands, are no longer financially viable. Talking about grapes right now, read article today, $8,000 a ton grapes are now selling for under $2,000. So that industry is taking a dump also. So, and then a lot of the objections are the terpene drift from cannabis. Many studies have been done on that. There were no detectable levels of cannabis terpenes on wine grapes or the resultant wine made from vineyards with adjacent cannabis farms. So before we just go and get crazy, I think we should just dump this. It was voted in 2020. This was one of the last obstructionist prohibitionist parts of the ordinance, and it doesn't look into the future at all. It takes nothing to, if this product became full-term outdoor cannabis became so valuable, which it has the possibility of doing that, we would be affecting property owners all over Lake County. That is not the highest and best use of their land.
Richard,
And
can you
as
sum
part,
it up?
it's a real, okay, I'll drop it off. As a realtor, it is important for me to look at land with the highest best use. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Who's next? Oh, also, so just, since I received a note that for point of order, FPC topic is closed, it's my understanding that we were discussing the maps, but we have yet to discuss A, B, C, or anything else. The task force hasn't taken any action on these items. So A is outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall not be allowed within any farmland protection zone. So my understanding is that this is still actually kind of open. It's just a vote on what lands we're going to be included in the map in the farmland protection zone is closed. Is that accurate or am I off? Okay, so I think that it is still pertinent, but I totally hear what you're saying. All right, who's next?
Jordan Poole.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Hi, I just had a quick question. Just regarding the farmland protection zones that we're talking about adding in, are we talking about the 1,000-foot buffer from those properties?
The question, well, as the, if I understand your question, Jordan, is that with the code still stands. We're working on recommendations from the code. So yes, it would be 1,000 feet of any farmland protection zone, not necessarily the entire parcel.
But if you have like a piece of land in unique farmland, you're saying that you have to someone would have to be 1,000 feet from that to even operate?
That would be my understanding, yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jordan.
It's going to be Aaron.
Aaron, go ahead. Can you state your first and last name too, please?
Hi, my name's Erin Cherry, and I'm in South County, and we have a pending project that if I'm looking at this correctly, it is farmland of local importance. And I just wanted to voice concern, besides my own project, in general, adding the limitations to agriculture. As landowner, this land has been in our family for many years, and we've struggled my whole life to try to keep the land because it's expensive to own land in California, insurance and taxes. And we've gone through, we had pears, we had sheep, we had quarter horses, we've had oat hay, and we've had grazing cattle. And currently we are pending a project for cannabis because for us to sustain our property, it is the highest amount of yield revenue for the least amount of acres. And we want to just put plants in the ground as we did with oat hay, as we did with the previous owner before us, pears. And I understand there are extra regulations that come with cannabis, but why are we adding even more? And if we would have to grow indoors, we'd be adding, excuse me, that was my alarm. We would have to be adding greenhouses and buildings when we just want to put plants in the ground, not more buildings. So I have concerns with this. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, that looks like all hands from Zoom. Yeah, that was there. We'll bring it back to the task force. There is no discussion or action. That was actually just a review. So if it's okay with the task force, let's start working down, starting with A. This is on page 29 of our agenda packet. Yeah, let's go ahead and stop sharing. So the task force has taken former action or already action on all the lands that are included within the farmland protection zone. A says outdoor cultivation, by which I think we mean outside of indoor mixed light and greenhouse, shall not be allowed within any farmland protection zone.
Oh, yeah, right, gotcha.
Yeah, get rid of that minutes ago.
I think what we're seeing is today is the consequences of voting on something before you actually know what the impacts of that vote would be. It's a pretty heavy impact.
This is the chance for the task force to have any discussion before we open it up to public input.
I mean, I don't support the inclusion of these lands in the farmland protection zone. I don't support farmland protection zone. Therefore, I'm not going to support any of these subsections of this. So that would be my discussion, and would love open dialogue on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just checked off these wonderful shades of green and they're all having trouble with it. But I was checking them off and we were speaking about Richmond Kelly, by the way, sorry. And by the time I was done checking off the prime farmland, the farmland of statewide importance, the unique farmland, the farmland of local importance, I mean, it is hard to read on that map. And then I add in my head 1,000 feet from said zones. What's left again? Is there a map for that? So that would be an interesting piece to look at. From an industry standpoint, and once again, I'm just guy that lives in Lake County and a business person. It's very important to have a strong economy. It's very important to have a strong industry and for that to mesh with the community around it. But I'm reading through this. I wasn't here for this vote or I would have voted against it personally. But the outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall not be allowed within any farmland protection zone. You might have already gotten that anyway, based on what I'm looking at with the 1,000 foot and all those other things. So yeah, I feel like we should just strike it. I don't see the point of it. And I might agree with Jennifer here that once again, what we decided, which once again, I wasn't here for it, fair enough. It seems so restrictive that it's okay to say maybe we were wrong about something. I don't know how that works in the system, but I don't know where we go from that point based on where we're at, because it pretty much, why does it matter anymore? Based on what we decided with the 1,000 foot. Because like I said, I'd love to see a map that would show bright yellow for everyone. Once we check off all these boxes of prime farmland, and like I was saying, and then we take the 1,000 feet, I'd like to see what's left. I'm a pretty visual guy, so, and I can't picture it.
Will Weiss, the other public interest seat on the task force. So one thought that keeps coming to mind is that the public weighed in pretty heavily when we talked about this at the meeting that you weren't present for, and was not, I guess, not uniform. There's obviously many members of the public who were calling on behalf of their own interests in cannabis projects, what have you, but there was not a lack of public input pointing us in the direction of maintaining, if not expanding, farmland protections. So to me, it seems a dubious prospect to renege on all of what the public has told us, many of them present here today, and simply do away with this language. That doesn't seem in the spirit of what they've asked us to do.
Right. Richmond Kelly again, just like I said, I wasn't here. Did were the maps?
No.
Because the map is, the visual that I think.
I don't see the same visual you do. I see a lot of land that's still usable.
Right. For
the purposes of cultivating.
People have already purchased and have projects in place or in progress on other land. Are you saying that they should sell that land and then go buy new land and then reapply at the county and pay all the fees again and start over, and it's a 2 to 4 year process?
I didn't say that.
I think it's important to clarify two things. The first being, which has been stated multiple times, that existing approved projects would continue as legal non-conforming. The second of which is that this is only a recommendation that still has to go through the planning commission and then the board of supervisors.
Is there any further questions, comments from the task force before we open it to public input?
Yep, again, if this is about protecting open space, soils, farmland, you don't do that by putting up a permanent structure, and so that's why I do think that outdoor cultivation not being allowed is actually against farmland protection. So, I would be supporting removing that.
I'd like to clarify an additional third thing. We were fortunate enough to hear from the chief building official last week, and if I'm not mistaken, he did clarify that a permanent structure is not required for a greenhouse. Just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, if task force is ready, we'll go ahead and open to public in the room. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, just to add to what Will White says, there was a comment earlier about not a lot of comment or chance for discussion. This is the third meeting in a row that I've attended. Farmland protection has probably consumed well over 50% of the conversation. So I think it's disingenuous to suggest that there hasn't been dialogue. And there's been plenty of representation for both the people that are supportive of farm protection zones as those that weren't. So I just want to point out that any idea that this wasn't fairly discussed or that not everybody is here, I was keeping track.
Bill, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm Bill Wilson. I think the no growing on farmland is important primarily because cannabis seems to have so many more regulations as far as purities and drifts. Even an organic farmer can drift on, and the cannabis cannot be sold, it can't be used. And we've got a big, huge, strong grape and pear industry here. And I think we're jeopardizing that by allowing cannabis, because the pear farmers and grape farmers are gonna probably get sued because they have some kind of drift, even if it's organic. And I think even the 1,000-foot setback is probably too small because the harm from the cannabis is the terpenes drifting and the ozone production from that, nitrous oxides in sunlight. And I think even some of the great, the cannabis people like this fellow who has Napa Valley Fume had an interview with Harbor Collectives, and the cannabis is trying to be approved in Napa County. They took a supervisor up to his property, and he stands 2,000 feet back and says there's no odor 2,000, and we're only talking about 1,000 foot. And here's this award-winning cannabis grower that is taking his supervisors to 2,000 feet back. And so obviously there's a reason for that. But I think the no growth in the farmland should be approved and enforced.
Any other hands in the room? Go ahead.
Travis Nito. If this goes to pass, there's going to be, you're setting the county up for numerous lawsuits from all these people that invested their livelihoods and everything they've had into these farms when the county first told them that it was okay. Now you're changing the rules after they already made this investment. I can see a windfall of lawsuits coming to the county over this.
Any other hands in the room? Not, we'll go to Zoom.
Sarah? Sarah?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Bodner, consultant. I appreciated Richmond's comments, and I think that the fact that we didn't look at these maps when the vote was made is highly problematic procedurally, to not look at how things are impacted. And even having the maps before us today, I believe it's still pretty two-dimensional. And I wanted to address something that Will brought up, that, he still sees a lot of viable land, a lot of useful land. It may appear that way, but when we're talking about cannabis in practice, the the reality is that we don't enjoy right to farm privileges. So you can't purchase any parcel anywhere and decide to plant cannabis on it. It has to meet a number of rigorous environmental regulations that other agriculture is not accountable for. So things like slope and grading and setbacks from water courses actually zone out a lot of land that might appear to be viable for a cannabis project, but isn't. And so why you see farms trying to be located in more of these ag-appropriate valleys is that the land is more suitable. And that also means that the environmental impact of those farms will be less because they're in less sensitive ecological areas. So the 3D view of this is that this map could in fact be zoning cannabis out of business in Lake County. And I don't think that's the intention. I think the intention of this task force in the county has been for cannabis to be a healthy and vital part of the local agricultural economy. Lastly, my comment about greenhouses, hoop houses, outdoor specifically. When this vote was brought up, there was a lot of support amongst task force members about considering hoop houses as a viable alternative. And if you are to move forward with this map, I would strongly encourage you to strike the outdoor restrictions because hoop houses are considered outdoor by the state of California, and amend this line to allow hoop houses as an acceptable form of shelter for farms that are located in this zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the next person in just a moment. It is almost 1:30, so we've been here about an hour and a half. I just wanted people to know that we'll probably call for a break in a few minutes, just so we can kind of get up and walk around. Who's next?
Angela?
Thank you, Ruth. I hear people talking about removing the land from production, and are we really removing the land from production, or are we requiring it to go into greenhouses? It can still be cultivated on, it just has to be in a greenhouse or mixed light or indoor. And I want to recall, Rebecca, maybe you can correct me, but during the meeting when the maps were being discussed before these maps came out, I believe Rebecca had shown the task force some maps. So it did, granted, it didn't have the projects listed on there, but I'm still unclear as to, are we catering to certain projects and trying to pick and choose which ones we help along? But I just want to point that out, that this isn't taking this land out of production, it's making it go into greenhouses. So I think that's a falsity that's going around. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ruby. Or we start with Ruby next. Thanks, Angela.
Then we have Samantha.
Okay, go ahead, Samantha.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Samantha de Trinidad.
Thank you.
So I'd like to read a letter, if possible, on behalf of Peter Simon, who's a landowner in the area. Would that be okay?
A letter?
Yeah, it was sent in
to
Ruby, or sorry, to the task force.
Did everybody receive Peter Simon's letter? Angela, Samantha, we already got that letter.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's part of our agenda package.
Excellent. So it will be shared with the group?
It has been shared and it is available to anyone who clicks on the agenda online.
I'm not sure.
Isn't it? Oh, I'm wrong. Sorry, one moment. We'll attach it to the next agenda, Samantha, but it is available here as part of our packet.
Okay.
Maria, just real quickly, you guys do have the link on the cannabis webpage now that has the public comments, and I think it's on there.
Oh, good. Thanks. Okay. Did you have anything else other than reading that letter, Samantha, though?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And who was the next one?
We have Jordan.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, regarding the statement about, grapes getting contaminated by cannabis projects. I mean, the property that I'm next to has grapes up to the property line. And, I plan on growing organic food for my family there, and what they're spraying is going to be coming over and landing on that food. And it almost seems like, if we're going to be required to put hoop houses over cannabis, and this seems super far fetched, but why wouldn't we require it over, non-organic vineyards and things like that? It just seems like it just seems like we're moving so far backwards, and cannabis testing is so strict that you can't really spray anything that's anywhere close to what's sprayed on all these other farms. And I just wanted to voice that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. And we have one more before we take a break. Who is that?
It's Aaron McCarrick.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Hey there, I'll be quick, Erin McCarrick, Clear Lake. Just to echo, what Travis had said and what Sarah had said in the sense of how many people this affects and the implications. And also want to, I do reiterate and agree with the people who have said there has been a lot of discussion about this. But these additional setbacks will really, in effect, basically be a ban. And that's not part of the productive conversation in terms of how we're all working together and how, we can create a vibrant ag community and industry in Lake County. It's been, as Richard's been said he's been here going on this for 10 years. So I think that's important to understand the progress that's been made and just very much support not putting any more restrictions on the grows and just finding a way to as the Cannabis Task Force has been doing for the past 2 years. I want to thank the volunteer board, but just continue to make forward progress on how we make this a sustainable and healthy industry.
Okay, thanks. We're going to go ahead and take about a 5-6 minute break. And when we come back, we'll still have public input open. Thank you. Thank you. Took a quick break. Now we're back. We're still talking about subsection A, and we are still in public comments. Andrew, you had your hand up, and then I think Tom has some, and we'll keep going.
Fantastic, thank you. Andrew Dobbs Kramer. I just want to give a comment that I think these maps are very enlightening. And I think the task force now actually has the opportunity to really consider the impact, the full impact of this language that was until now really just theoretical, without any sort of data or any evidence, any numbers of what kind of impact we were looking at. It's very easy to say, yeah, that sounds good, but now we can see it laid out before us. And we're really talking about, if not an extinction event for cultivation in this county, we're talking about an incredible limitation and a huge reduction in permits and in investment and jobs and taxes and all of the things that go with that. I also just want to clarify really quickly that what I heard from the chief building official, and maybe planning staff can weigh in and correct this if I'm incorrect, but I believe what we heard from the chief building official was that greenhouses are permanent structures. They're engineered structures, and while you may not need a slab foundation, they do need to be permanently affixed to the ground. So it's not as though they can just be thrown up and then taken back. Thank you.
Thank you. That is what I remember too. Tom.
Yeah, Tom, I was just real quick, sort of along the lines of what Andrew mentioned. There was a comment made that hoop houses were on the table, but that was during the time when there was the assumption that a slab was somehow required for the greenhouse. That's been so that's isn't necessary. There are other options. So while it might be a permanent structure, its impact in the soil is dramatically reduced since it doesn't slab. I just want to put that point in record. That's what it was.
Are there any other hands raised? Go ahead, Margaret.
Thanks, Maria. Just wanted to voice appreciation for a little license comment, public, stating that there was a lot of public support for expanding or protecting farmlands with the task force work here. Also, I would like to state appreciation for Rebecca's comments about the clarification on what we're talking about here. We're not taking lands out of production. We're saying if you want to grow this crop, you need to do it in a greenhouse. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other hands in the room? Anything else up in the Zoom?
Holly.
Go ahead, Holly.
Oh, hi, thank you. Yeah, basically, I wanted to just reiterate that, yes, there was a lot of public comment in support of the farmland protection zone. I do want to say that I was not able to hear the last, 3 people that were speaking, just because it's very, very quiet. And then since you're now about to embark on walking through each of these line items in the farm protection zone, plus hopefully another 5 or 6 things on the agenda, I'd like you to clarify or actually how the voting will work today.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Is it different than any of our other days?
Well, so basically, is it based on an 8-person group?
Oh,
I guess what I'm asking is is the fire protection district out now, or is it not out until the board, looks into that? I
no,
would like clarification.
they have resigned. The post is still there, because that would require board action to remove it. So it's still, what, eight?
It would be 8 members.
Still an
Okay.
8. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, good.
And one more. Oh, Jordan.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
Sorry, I
okay.
got distracted. Go ahead, Jordan.
Hi, I just wanted to say, I know that there's, both sides of the table regarding the expansion of the farmland protection zones, but I think that decision that was made is impacting so many people that there's a lot more people kind of in voicing their concerns now because of how many people it's going to affect. So there's going to be a lot more input regarding that current situation because of how drastic that really is for the landowners of Lake County. Thanks.
Thanks, Jordan. Are we done then?
And we have one more, Sarah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Bodner. There's been a few comments that we're not, saying people can't grow cannabis in this zone. They just have to put it in greenhouses. And I want to repeat what I've said before, which is that is cost prohibitive. So it is in effect a ban. It's a different style of farming, and it's a very resource intensive style of farming. So if you force cannabis farms into greenhouses, you're putting them out of business. Thank you.
Sarah. All right, that takes care of hands raised in Zoom. Let's turn it back to the task force for consideration and or action.
We're discussing.
Discussion. Yep.
Right.
Well, it's up to the task force. I'm not the one making the rules. We're discussing the farmland protection zone section. So, but we just started with A to be orderly.
Is there other discussion or we want to look at a motion? I would move to remove A.
We have a motion.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay?
Nay.
All right, let me make sure I got that recorded right. Can you raise your hand for aye? Make sure we get everybody. And nay? And any abstaining?
Richmond Kelly, I have an issue with a land rights issue, and I will say yay.
A, okay. That passes. So just to be clear, the recommendation is to strike A from the farmland protection zone section. How about B?
I'm gonna move to strike B. Jennifer Smith.
Okay, one moment, hold on, because we had a question from the public before who had a comment on another part of this, and I told them to hold on to it. So let's go, just to make sure, let's follow the same process to make sure we're getting public input on B.
So we're taking public comment on the.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind withdrawing that, let's just wait a minute.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so talking about B, outdoor cultivation not allowed within 1,000 feet of any farmland protection zone. Does the task force have any questions? If not, we'll go to public input. Public input, any hands in the room? Bill, was this yours? Oh, no, you had a different one.
Well, I would like to go with some, I still think that, the 1,000 feet should be, kept in there. I think cannabis is, and we've got the criminalization and we've got a lot of different things, but the environment has not been dealt with. There isn't probably any other crop out there that smells as bad as cannabis, and the smell is what is bad for the environment. You know, it attacks photosynthesis, it does all kinds of things. I think if we're gonna have it close to the farm protection zone, and maybe the research says that it doesn't attack the grapes, but grape buyers and wineries aren't knowing that, and they are not buying. If we're willing to sacrifice our vineyards for cannabis, I guess then we would remove that, but I would vote probably not to do that and keep at least 1,000 feet away from farmland protected zones without greenhouses.
Is there any other public input in the room? Hands raised in the Zoom room? Oh, wait, sorry, hold on, Tom, sorry. Yeah, jump up.
Hold on, Angela.
Tom Lasik, speaking louder this time. Yeah, I think 1,000% that should be made. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other? Nope.
Go ahead,
Zoom.
Angela.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out when we had the discussion about the water board setbacks being reduced to 50 feet, it was pointed out by those in the industry that that we should reduce it because that was the will of the board at the time, and it just never made it back to the board. And for those same reasons, Ordinance 3101 and 3103 should remain in place because it was the will of the board. If we're going by what the will of the board was, then we shouldn't be changing this for 3101 and 3103 is my feeling. Thank you.
Next.
Holly?
Oh, hi there. I have to totally reiterate what Angela says. It was what the board put together, and I think that needs to be taken into account. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
And then Sarah?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Bodner here, consultant. I think there's just some slippery logic sneaking in here because the will of the board was also to limit the farmland protection zone to a very specific area, which is now being discussed as being expanded. So I think we need to be careful when we're relying on the past to determine what's right going forward. And really, I think we just have to look at the facts as they are before us, you know, which is what is the impact of making this policy change on the operators and neighbors on this proposed area today. And given what we've seen play out in this industry, we know how hard it is for the people who are trying to do the right thing to stay in business. Cannabis is not, you know, going to be the lottery for Lake County, but it can be a stable part of the agricultural economy if we can allow it to operate and do business. If we decide to strangle it, we're going to miss that opportunity. And, you know, we don't have a lot of businesses that are banging down the doors to try to open up business in Lake County. But we do have people that are in this room, that are on this call, and that have been in these boardrooms since 2017, trying to make it work here. And this policy is going to directly impact.
Thanks. Who else?
Many of those have been waiting in line this entire time.
Sarah, were you done? Sorry. You done?
Yes, I'm complete. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Didn't Angela already speak? Angela, is your hand still up or?
I raised it again, Maria. I'd like to double dip if I may.
Go ahead.
All right. Just one other thing, and I understand where the industry is coming from, but at the same token, we're all navigating this, right? So you have people from the public that have had these move in next door that are voicing their concerns and want to see some restrictions remain in place, some be expanded, some be removed. But I it has to be a give and a take. We have to realize that we're also affecting residents. This is still a new industry. I'm going to keep saying that it's less than 10 years old. So we until we have more data, I think that we need to listen to the public just as much as we're listening to the industry. Thank you.
That's it for the Zoom room. I can see Andrew, and then we'll go to Margo. Go ahead, Andrew. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you, sorry. Andrew Downs Kramer. I just want to clarify, I think the discussion at hand right now is B, and is whether there should be this setback requiring that cannabis not be allowed within 1,000 foot of farmland protection zone. I think, the same logic that applies to subsection A applies here. I don't think this is something that's should be regulated within land use policy. Because there are disputes with land use on farmland protection and outside of farmland protection zone. Those are disputes between private businesses. But I don't think this is necessary to be in a land use ordinance. Thank you.
Margo?
Oh, I just wanted to echo what Angela has brought up. We talk about neighbors having certain, we just need more research on the odor impact of cannabis. And neighbors' considerations should be weighed as well. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Nope. Bring it back to task force. For discussion and or action.
This is Rich Kelly again. You've been here long enough, you probably heard me talk about 1,000 foot or 500 feet and 10,000 feet. I am all about protecting community enjoyment around properties, my own included. I've just never read or seen anything that tells me 1,000 feet is better than 500 feet or better than 10,000 feet. I hear wind, I hear other things. The distance to me, I've never read anything that actually tells me, research that says that's what it needs to be. Should be more, could be less, I don't know. And until I know that, it's hard to take a hard stance on any of this. 1,000 feet means something to one person, it means nothing to me. I have a cannabis farm within 500-600 feet, it feels like some days, it's not. And other days I have one 2 miles away, it blows me out. So, and it's agriculture. I live in Lake County because of agriculture. I love it. And I don't see the 1,000 foot or any other foot telling me anything other than we're guessing. And I'm not a big fan of that policy. Guessing does not help anyone. It weakens everything, makes it easily picked apart later on. And I just have an issue with the 1,000 foot. I'd really like to hear somebody else tell me otherwise. So that would help me make decisions during this process. Have an expert kind of tell me what 1,000 feet means versus 500 versus 10,000. Thank you.
It's just part of the discourse between the task force and the we're not going back to public input. And this is like the task force.
This is Rebecca. I'll just state, on behalf of Farm Bureau, obviously, we disagree with the direction that this is going. I think there's still other potential areas to compromise, but it's somewhat easy to me to see where the vote falls, so I don't know that it's worth wasting my breath on.
Request a break. Any discussion?
A break? Well, our discussion should be an open session, but we can have a break. Take another 5-minute break. Sounds good. Okay, 5-minute break. So just to recap, we took a break. This is still back with the task force for discussion and action. And this is subsection B, the 1,000-foot setback from farmland protection zone.
So this is Rebecca Harper. I'm a little bit confused. At least it was my intention, but I thought that the previous motion was to expand the protections of FPZ to include additional areas incorporated into the map, in which case, because that motion passed, I don't believe that we should be able to discuss or consider action on any of these items. I don't know if that can be clarified.
Did the motion also include to keep all of these the same? Otherwise, I'm not sure why.
It didn't specifically reference A through J. It said to expand the protections of FPZ to include the FMNP map into the FPZ map.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be expanding the protection.
So it was my understanding, I thought you nodded, when it was my understanding that we didn't even talk about this stuff. In fact, we were just talking about the maps separately, but not this stuff. So I thought that was our understanding when we started talking about this stuff. Right?
I was confused about that. I guess I am so confused about that. I'm not sure if anybody else shares the same sentiment. At least that was the intent of my motion when it was made, and I thought that was we were working under that assumption as well.
Unless the motion says and keep all parts of it the same, I'm not sure how that would have taken place. Was that part of the motion?
I guess we can go back and watch them if we want to and figure it out. Otherwise, I don't know how else that is decided. Because, I mean, it would seem silly to me that making a motion to expand the map would essentially mean nothing, is what you're saying. Or what the task force is saying.
It is a recommendation that's gonna go forward, just like all these other recommendations.
But those would be conflicting recommendations. So that's, I guess, where it's confusing to me, right? Because the original motion was to expand the FPZ zone to include those additional areas which are currently protected. So if we bring now other motions to the Board of Supervisors that say, we recommend expanding the FPZ map and eliminating FPZ essentially, that I don't see how that could be what we're able to do now, given what has already occurred. You know?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's just my concern regarding what was just voted on and what will potentially be voted on if we continue to work through the list.
I'm the staff support, so I don't think I make a determination on that, so this is a conversation between the task force.
I see your point. We're basically have voted to expand FPZ, and now with the way the votes would align, we're gonna gut 3101 and 3103.
Right.
So obviously, we all know how I feel on this. I don't know if it's in our purview to change 3101 and 3103.
It's within the task force purview to make recommendations regarding cannabis policy.
Okay.
That was what the board mandated.
So then I think that the task force should discuss are there more amenable aspects that could make the FPZ more appetizing to farmers? You know, one of which would be to allow for hoop houses. Because when we do say no outdoor cultivation on any farmland protection zone, that does eliminate hoop houses.
So in order to do that, if it's something the task force is willing to consider, the previous motion would have to be recalled for a vote since it was already stricken. And that can only be done by
The
prevailing vote, which is the three, Nara, Richmond, or Jen, if that's something that you're interested in doing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to include hoop houses as an
The
allowable
hoop
use.
houses were voted on in as part of the discussion around this paragraph, we were voting on this particular paragraph at the previous meeting. And that was the 3-1-2 vote about hoop houses. But that vote then becomes moot if outdoor cultivation is allowed under state regulations and under current county regulations. You would be allowed to have hoop houses if you are doing outdoor growing.
I mean, to me, discussing any of the individual items seems kind of like we're using the back door because of the pre-existing motion that was made and passed. But that considered,
Probably what it does is it tells the future deciding bodies that look at this recommendation that there's not a whole lot of agreement around the section. They're probably gonna have to make some decisions around it themselves and understand that the task force itself was quite divided on this, because we are sending them an expansion of farmland protection. I think what this may bring up is, are there other things that could be done within that farmland protection zone, which has, as a recommendation, been expanded by this task force? If outdoor cultivation is allowed in farmland protection, are there additional protections that folks would want in that zone that don't include a ban on outdoor cultivation?
so as staff support, Maria, is it appropriate for a member of the task force to make a recommendation that an item of the list stay in effect? Is that a motion that can be made? Right, can I move to keep the language in item B, outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall not be allowed within 1,000 feet of any farmland protection zone?
That could be a motion.
Okay, so moved.
So that was a motion to retain.
Retain the language.
Restate that again, please.
I move to retain the language in B, outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall not be allowed within 1,000 feet of any farmland protection zone.
We have a motion. Can we discuss it before there's a second?
Has to be seconded and then discussed.
In the interest of discussion, I'll second.
Second discussion.
As our staff support, knowing that we're not actually voting on what the policy is, but just a recommendation, what would this mean for this to go through as is with A struck and B allowed? Does this just mean that any cannabis that was grown outdoors in the farmland protection zone would have 1,000-foot setback similar to public lands.
So let's go over what we've done so far.
Yeah.
We changed prevents to limits. We looked at the map that had the farmland protection zones in bold and added the top 4 of those to that map, so that the recommendation is that that map change. And then coming back to this, the task force recommended, though, because we're noting that a lot of these are not unanimous anymore, we are noting, the vote. So A, the recommendation is to strike. B, the recommendation is to keep. So basically you are sending conflicting recommendations, but I don't know how you're gonna get around it when you're not unified. So. Yeah, overall.
I would say like, so would this mean that you could have indoor cultivation and greenhouse cultivation within 1,000 feet of the farmland protection zone, and only if you were growing outdoors in farmland protection zone would you need 1,000-foot setback? I guess the question is, were this actually adopted as we were sending it forward? What's that?
You mean, were this adopted with A struck?
With A struck and B, I realize right now there's just a motion and a second on B. But if A were struck and B were approved and it.
Well, I'm pretty sure the board's gonna get to A, the recommendation that it be struck, and be like, well, what's the point of B and C?
Well, I guess the point would be, this is an additional setback.
I think what might be more useful to the board is if we discuss what might be acceptable, instead of going line by line. We said, oh, hoop houses were out, but now I think we're getting into actually a little more productive discussion of what are we actually recommending? Are we at a point where we have no recommendation effectively regarding farmland protection zone and its many subparts? Or are we taking a look at farmland protection zone and the task force got together and figured out, well, let's update it doing this? That's where I think we could go. Right now, we really got nothing, because we're voting one way for this, we're voting another way for that, so, yeah.
But that logic should apply to the last motion if we want to apply it to this motion.
What I was saying is, what I think I hear us talking about now with you introducing, maybe talking more about hoop houses, is maybe the task force wants to talk about how we can update this ordinance rather than going line by line, motion by motion.
But we do have to vote on the motion since it's on the floor.
Sure is.
Unless I withdraw.
Very true.
Any additional discussion?
So the motion was to keep B as is. Seconded by Will with discussion.
Maria, did you open it for public comment?
Nope, we're actually taking action. Oh wait, do we have to open up for public comment if we opened it up for discussion? I don't think so. I think it's discussion within the task force.
I think that we would all be better served if we had discussion on what FPC regulations are now, or what we would like to see them be. Otherwise, then we're just a divided party, and we just send that to the board and say there was a vote to expand it, and the contents of what it are undetermined.
I agree with that. I think that conversation can only occur if the previous vote is called back to question. I don't think that we can have that conversation if the previous
Regarding
vote
A.
to strike A stands.
Correct. I would agree with that.
So, I mean, if somebody who had a prevailing vote wanted to call that motion back into question and re-vote on it, and then go back and discuss how to amend this that would appease all parties, that I think is the only way to have that discussion. I don't know.
Part of the conversation at the last task force meeting, though, was an attempt to try to find a solution, and that was also voted down. So, I mean, how far do we align with that? If we actually want to discuss about what FPC is, and we, those previous two meetings where those votes were taken, there was not actually this information. in front of us. Then
I just would rather have more productive conversations and get through this arduous task that has gone on for 2 years. And if we can't come to an agreement, then we just have to move forward with a recommendation that the recommendation is that the area is expanded and
that outdoor cannabis is allowed and that it's, I mean,
But I mean, that's really not right, but that's a conversation for another time.
So I would need a map of what we just talked about with the new additions and the 1,000 feet and see what that looks like. And without that, I think most people would want that.
My
Just
number
as,
one
you know,
priority. No, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you know.
My number one priority is to protect those that are in the queue. They entered this agreement and they entered, they paid fees that these were the standards under which their project was going to be judged. And serious investments were made from that point, including CEQA review and biological studies and water studies. And I think that at the end of all of this, those people need to be protected that are in the line. And we can continue to disagree about FPZ and its expansion and what FPZ means. That's my goal.
Completely agree with that. I think any business person would say that's, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you go into something and you shell out money based on what you think something is, based on what that county or that government is telling you, and that changes in that process, the government needs to pay you back in full.
And so I think, again, to have either of those conversations, which I would be willing to engage in, the previous motion still needs to be brought back up. Because, I mean, I don't know how we can discuss what we want FPZ to look like if we have a motion to expand it and a motion that means it doesn't exist.
well, why would we only be talking about rewinding the vote today that is about FPZ without undoing all of the conversation around FPZ? If we're gonna start a real conversation about FPZ, let's start back at the beginning.
Okay, I'm gonna vote to,
We had a motion and a second. Motion from Rebecca to keep B as is, Will seconded with discussion. So we're either looking for a vote on that motion or a withdrawal of that motion. Or some of the other things that come up in like Rosenberg's rule for. Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and call for my vote.
That's the vote on the motion to keep.
Yeah.
Rebecca called for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand so we can tell. Rebecca and Will for that. And then all those, no, actually, once it comes back for voting, it doesn't go back to public input. We didn't have public input. We had public input.
Before the break.
Yeah. And then it came back to the task force and then we took a break. Okay. Sorry, okay, so we have Rebecca and Will, aye. All those against, please raise your hand.
I will abstain just to show once again.
All right, so we have 2, 2, 1.
Okay, so that motion didn't.
The motion does not pass. Let me just say one thing before we get too rigid. The report that goes before the Board of Supervisors is not going to be strictly limited to this motion was made, it passed, this motion was made, it passed. It's going to have some thematic discussion of it as well. So it could include, there's no reason why if the task force wants to talk about FPZ in total and come up with a recommendation in total, I don't see why you couldn't do that. The board's not gonna say, sorry, you guys already, did this, that, and the other. If you guys wanna have a productive discussion, yay, let's have a productive discussion. That would be really awesome. Because the board really wants to know that all the members of this task force, what you all think. If there's discord, we think this, but we also are concerned about that, let's get that all in the staff report. It shouldn't just be two-dimensional, this is the vote, this is how it happens, because they really want to know what you guys think.
And yeah, and just to clarify, that vote not passing doesn't actually mean anything. An additional vote would have to be made. because the way that the votes are, it's 2-2-1, so like it doesn't mean anything. Nothing has happened, basically.
Yeah.
So can we have a discussion about if we're willing to have discussion? I mean, we have meetings to make meetings, so. Because it's the difference between
I think we are
wanting
still
one vote
talking
or two
about
votes.
important farmland.
I was willing to discuss hoop houses, which I previously stated.
So I would like to withdraw my motion for the removal of A from the Lake County, important farmland.
You made a motion to reconsider.
Yeah, I think you can't withdraw once it's already done.
Okay, motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider A. There's a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of reconsidering A, subsection A, please vote aye with your hands up. Will, Becca, Christian's jumping in, Jennifer, anyone against reconsidering? We got one, that passes. 4-1. All right. That is open for reconsideration.
Can I would like to reopen for consideration, the vote of last week regarding hoop houses in FPZ.
So your motion? That the last time?
I was of the prevailing party.
Okay. That's fine.
For hoop houses, we voted no, right? So then, what was the result? I just wanna make sure we do
No,
it right.
they were not allowed in FPZ.
Right, and who made the motion?
I'm not sure who made it.
I think,
But you voted in
I was
favor.
prevailing party, yes.
So since it didn't pass, the prevailing party is actually no.
Okay.
So,
That's right, yes,
but I will move to reconsider the vote on hoop houses. I just want to make sure it's done correct.
Second.
And we'll second that one too. So. Second, thanks, Paul. And so, all those in favor of reconsidering the hoop house vote from last week, please say aye with your hands raised.
Aye, with my hand raised.
That looks unanimous, right? Is that you, Richmond?
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
5-0, that one is back on the table.
Does that make the item, back the item of consideration at the moment? I don't know.
We're actually just,
So
I don't
let's
think you
talk
have to, I
about
think
what
we're just
we
saying
want
they're
in
back on the table.
FPZ.
Yeah.
Jennifer, what do you want in FPZ?
Okay, well, I would just like to say on the record that I think FPZ needs to go away. That being said, if we do maintain some sort of form of farmland protection zone, at a minimum, I would like to see hoop houses be allowed within farmland protection zone, which would also include on on those parcels. Let's see. I would also like to reconsider the 1,000-foot setback. I would like to reconsider the 1 mile of vegetation screening.
1 mile of vegetation.
If you're within 1 mile, you have to have vegetative screening.
Subsection C.
Subsection C, yes. So I would like to discuss with the task force members items A, B, and C within the farmland protection zone. I'm going to advocate for hoop houses because they are the least expensive way in which we can come to an agreement between cannabis farmers and farmers of other crops to protect themselves from one another. It does not require an impermeable permanent surface over important and vital farmland. It is considered by the state an outdoor cultivation style, And that's why it is essential that we make the distinction that outdoor cultivation is allowed if it is in a hoop house. And then we already have those hoop house requirements. So we can refer to that definition.
Or ordinance 3132.
Yes. I believe that the 1,000 feet is arbitrary. And if we are going to be in hoop houses, then that setback should be removed. And if we're going to be in hoop houses, again, within 1 mile of the farmland protection zone, then we shouldn't have any vegetative screening required. Vegetative screening is also really not substantive considering how the trees have to be 20.
Or was it more about the visuals of people not wanting to look at campus? I don't know if that was about.
That's a good question.
Odor.
It takes so long for a tree to grow to 20 feet. I mean, like, what are we really doing here?
It was not visual. It would have been to catch terpene movement. Another way to physically block transfer.
As I said in the last meeting, I think that the hoop houses are a way to continue to protect the land, which is, I thought the intent of the farmland protection zone. It does that a lot better than forcing permanent structures or buildings to be built on it. I would suggest language, if this was the will of the task force to amend outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall only be allowed within farmland protection zone in hoop houses. Double negative. Okay.
That's very efficient.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Shall be allowed within farmland protection zone. We have to say only.
Or license shall be required for outdoor cultivation.
Yeah, that's even more.
We can work with it later, we understand what you're saying.
So can we do it? Would there be a potential for a larger motion in this, that it would be that language? If it's in a hoop house, then it's allowed within 1,000 feet. And we get rid of C because it's actually, I don't know that it's even possible to comply with. Can we do that as a group, or do we keep going through individually?
If I hear correctly, where we're kind of moving to is outdoor cultivation within the farmland protection zone must take place in a hoop house. With the removal of 1,000-foot setback of the farmland protection zone and removal of vegetative screening in terms of the 1 mile.
Well, okay, I'm getting on board with A, right? I'm like moving in that direction. Okay. B confuses me because if we're saying outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall, that's just referring to, would there be a direct differentiation made between full sun outdoor cultivation and outdoor cultivation occurring in hoop houses?
Well, I think if there's no outdoor cultivation, full sun outdoor cultivation in that FPZ, then the outdoor would be a kingdom house.
Right, but
101.
But B says outdoor cultivation of cannabis shall not be allowed within 1,000 feet of any farmland protection zone. So by removing that, you're saying anybody could cultivate full sun outdoor cannabis as close to a FPC zone as they wanted to.
That's what you're saying.
Look at
Right.
3101 and
So
3103.
I don't know that that makes sense to do.
So what I
If it is
understand
within
is,
1,000
okay, so.
Right.
I think I get it.
Because otherwise it wouldn't.
Yeah. So you're talking about like adjacent properties to the
Well-
farmland protection zone growing full sun, not projects that are in
Well,
FPZ.
yeah, because if your idea is to just strike B, then there's no validity to A really anymore.
Yeah.
Because, so you would have to say, any outdoor cultivation occurring within 1,000 feet of an FPZ zone must also be in
In a
hoop house,
house.
greenhouse, or mixed light.
And that would be for the properties that are not FPZ.
Right, anything within
But
1,000 feet.
they, outside that 1,000 feet, they'd be able to grow full sun. Within the 1,000 feet, it would be hoop house, similar to it would be treated as an FPZ then?
Everything in FPZ
Plus
has
a
to adhere to
1,000
these
feet.
rules, plus 1,000 feet has to adhere to the rules. Otherwise, if you strike B, then you have full sun growing essentially on the boundary of an FPZ. And then there would be no point to having folks in the FPZ in hoop houses.
If you have an FPZ project and you have an adjacent parcel, right now as it stands, you have to be 1,000 feet or more from their boundary line to have full sun. And this would not change that. It would just allow for hoop houses within that 1,000 feet. Is that how we're all understanding this? Okay.
Correct.
And that was the big effect on people that were already in the program before.
Make sure I understand. The idea is within the FPZ, all outdoor cultivation is required to take place within hoop houses.
Yes.
And the same restriction applies to the 1,000-foot setback.
Correct. We're gonna open this up for public input as soon as the task force is comfortable with that. I mean, just with that idea, not taking a position yet. All right. Public input in the room, any hands? Go ahead, Bill.
When you speak, Bill Wilson, when you speak hoop houses, are they sealed like a greenhouse or are they open to the air? You know, the whole thing here says that important agriculture is important to the economy. And we're saying that there is a possibility that cannabis can conflict with traditional farming. Why is the setback even talked about? There must be a reason for that because of the conflict of the agriculture, traditional farming. So is a hoop house would be the same as far as transferring terpenes, if as an open grow, a sun grow, is the hoop house sealed or is it open?
The original discussion was actually not about terpenes, it was about spray drift from traditional pesticides.
Is there any other public input or question in the room? Hands up? No, we'll go to Zoom.
Okay, Angela?
Thank you. So I'm going to backtrack to Rebecca's point since public comment hasn't been open for a while. The point that Rebecca raised regarding that her motion originally was on this whole section. I'd like to point out that CAP kind of agrees with that this was voted on as a section and should not be picked apart as it is being done right now. We also feel that it's a violation of duty. Allowing the revote on hoop houses is in violation of Rosenberg. Rosenberg's rules of orders state that a motion to reconsider must be made at the meeting where the item was first voted upon. So us having this discussion about hoop houses is not in order. Maria, I really think you need to reconsider this whole discussion right now. Thank you.
Angela? Who's next?
And Holly?
Go ahead, Holly.
Well, hi. Why don't you go back and take a look at what actually happened in the video? I agree. All of us thought that this was all part of the FPZ, so it'd be helpful to be clarified. on the opposite point of view, just because I won't have a chance to bring this up again. In terms of hoop houses, what are you talking about hoop houses? Are you talking about electricity? Are you talking about temporary, like the temporary structures? What does that actually entail? Thank you.
And then this is Donna.
Donna Mackowitz. I support.
Hey, Donna, could you say your name, please, for the minutes?
I'm sorry, Donna Mackowitz.
Thanks.
I thought that this was already finalized with the vote at the last meeting also. So I would just like to echo what Angela and Holly have said. And I think that all outdoor cultivation and farmland protection zones and security zones should be banned. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Margot.
Thanks, Maria. Margot Kamara. Wanted to echo support for what Angela has said previously and also what Holly said. With the motion that Rebecca made at the last meeting and that was approved, I also thought that the farmland protection zone question was pretty much answered. If you're going to expand or overlay additional farmlands to that zone, then why would you turn around and cut it to pieces in subsections? That doesn't make sense. I also wanted to, respectfully remind the task force that the board has previously stated its valuing of farmland protections by coming up with the ordinances 3101 and 3103, that that's a priority to keep farmlands in production. And I would like to applaud the task force for working together and setting aside differences to say, well, what can we agree on and what is the path forward? But again, going back to following Rosenberg's rules of order, it isn't proper to reopen the hoop house. So, thank you.
And we do have one more in Zoom.
One more in Zoom. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so we, the last 30 minutes, we all just kind of worked together and compromised on a solution, it kind of felt like. And I just feel like if we can kind of work on that same direction, like we got, it all kind of, I feel like everyone was kind of happy on that. And then, I don't know, that was just my view of it. Thanks.
Sure. Any other hands? No. Go ahead, Tom, and then we'll go to Andrew.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, just to let you know, it's 3:46 right now. I actually have a Lake County 2050 meeting at 4, so we will definitely end on time. Okay, and then we're still doing public.
Yeah, Andrew,
Andrew, did you want to go?
Oh, okay. Yeah, just it's the procedural aspect that I'm concerned about. I want to make sure things are done the right way, and I'm very concerned that things are going towards it backwards, whether or not it's for or against cannabis. I think unless you get some counsel on this particular procedural item, you can risk basically throwing a grenade onto the whole process. So, if you pointed out, I think it's correct that it should only happen in the meeting when it was originally voted on. Whether it's the best intent or not, it's going to open you up for one more problems that Thank you.
Maria, before.
So if we have no further public Andrew. Oh, we have Andrew.
But before Andrew, I just wanted to clarify, I don't know what the reference is to Rosenberg's rules of orders, but the Robert's rules of order does state that you, in a strict application of Robert's rules of orders, you can only recall a motion on the same day that it was made, but it's not actually like, it says in a strict application, it's not a steadfast rule, just for clarification.
I thought county council
Yeah, because it's a
Last
strict,
time,
it just says a strict application.
And are we under Roberts or Rosenberg's?
We're not under either of them technically because we've never made any adoption of bylaws, but we typically follow those rules of order. Rosenberg is very similar. Roberts is just designed for groups that are like under 50 people.
So Turner's rules of order.
Ha, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. I am staff support. Okay, so we're still at public input. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Brad. Andrew Dobbs Kramer. I just want to step back and once again, we've discussed a lot of times what is this task force, what is the purview of this task force. Previous votes here have, as I see it, reached beyond just this ordinance and actually redefined a term or sought to redefine a term that's defined in ordinances 3101 and 3103, which is farmland protection zone. Now we're looking at hoop houses as a solution and compromise to this, which we've looked at in previous meetings. I think we're looking at this far and wide. We're looking at it holistically. And if we're going to holistically look at it and discuss changing other ordinances and definitions that have been established by the county and other ordinances, then I think it's fair game to look at how we come to a holistic compromise here instead of just getting caught up in the point to point A versus B versus C. I think that's what this task force is charged with, is coming up with holistic solutions that actually improve the program, not just wordsmith. I think that we're getting back on track here and working towards compromise, and this is coming up.
More public input. Go ahead, Bill.
Just that once again, I was clarifying, does the task force envision hoop houses being filled with filters or not?
All right. Do we have any more? Or we're done? Oh, no, I don't think we need that much time. I kind of like to see what we think. Back to task force.
I think that despite any moving, previous votes and discussion, arguments and all of that aside, I think that we were tasked by the Board of Supervisors to try to come up with recommendations, and I think that if we send forward a bunch of confusing, conflicting stuff to the Board of Supervisors, the highest and best conversation is not gonna happen. I think that if they see that we were able to come to a compromise, even if it took 3 meetings to get there, we found that compromise, and then maybe they don't have to have 3 meetings to understand and get to the compromise. So I would be willing to move these as discussed, and I would accept, I think it was Rebecca's potential amendment that the 1,000 feet would also include a requirement for hoop houses and for outdoor cannabis. And in that spirit of compromise, I will make that motion to amend A, as stated by our staff support, that outdoor cultivation, do you want to read it?
Yes, please. Okay, instead of amending A, let's just make a clear recommendation for the board. So if I understand it is within the farmland protection zone, all outdoor cultivation shall take place within hoop houses. Same restriction applies for the 1,000 foot setback or for projects within the 1,000 foot setback. I wasn't clear on the remove the 1 mile vegetative screening thing, if that's part of this or not.
I think it should be then.
and remove the 1,000 or the 1 mile vegetated screening.
I kind of think we should maybe limit our recommendation to the hoop houses and then give the public time to also give public comment on vegetative screening, just because I don't think we've really talked about vegetative screening or given the public time to comment on it. Not saying there's a particular direction I want to go on that, I just think that's the most appropriate way to go.
Especially if we're trying to lock something in from this discussion.
So then if I understand correctly, it's just within the farmland protection zone, all or outdoor cultivation shall take place within hoop houses. This same restriction applies to projects within the 1,000-foot setback from, and of course, that's measured from the project to the parcel, or to the farmland protection zone. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have a
For discussion?
motion and this? Do we have time?
Thank you, quick.
Only if that's a motion with discussion.
Motion with discussion.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just want to say, because I know there are members of the public listening who've heard me harp on their behalf, that there may be a question on process related to how we've moved in this meeting. And I just want to say that I understand those concerns about rules being rules, but I also think when rules get in the way of productive compromise, they are in fact to the detriment of the process. So that's just the only thought I'm left with at the end of this. And I intend to vote accordingly.
There's no further discussion. We're ready for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. We have no no's and no abstentions. Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's move on. We have public comment. Is there any public comment that is under the purview of the task force but not already on today's agenda? I don't see any. Ruby, do you see any? All right, we are going to adjourn today. Our next meeting might be Monday tonight. We will send out a check to make sure we'll have quorum and send out a notification to all of our task force members and anybody who has to be on the notification list. And we'll also make note of it on the agenda on the website.